Because this week on the Sew and Bee it was reduce, reuse, recycle, I decided to recycle my Newcastle United jersey into a corset. Let's get it. So I'm going to use the corset pattern that I bought from Etsy ages ago for about £2. It's absolutely spot on, never failed me yet. I cut up the side seams of the jersey and opened that fabric out so I could see what I was working with. This is one of my favourite parts where I get to place the patterns and see what the actual end garment is going to look like. I use my pizza cutter to get those shapes cut out. I know this is a little bit controversial, but I prefer to use a rotary cutter rather than scissors. I find that just getting around those curved edges is so much easier, especially when you're working with fabric that was once something before, like a t-shirt. Once I was happy with the pattern placement of what I'd cut out, I then needed to find something to line it with. I had these tablecloths just lying around and I thought that'd be perfect just to line the inside of this corset. Once all those pattern pieces were cut out, I then moved on to my new machine, Bob & Williams, who is absolutely awesome by the way. Don't worry, nothing's happened to Freddie Mercury. I still need him to do my buttonholes because I don't have a function on this machine for it. Once I'd got everything sewn together, I moved over to my ironing board and got those seams laid flat. I always used to skip this part, but then one day I just did it and I thought, wow, that looks really good. Once your main fabric and your lining are all nice and pressed flat, I used these nifty little clips, probably about 1,000,000 of them, to hold them in place. When I sew my lining for a corset, I always sew the fabric and the lining face together so that when I turn it round the right way, it keeps all your raw edges on the inside. A little something like this. At this point, I did a little top stitch on the outside to keep it laying flat even further. To give the corset that finished look, I decided to bind the whole thing in black. I just think it makes the garment look super crisp and clean. Once the bias binding was all attached, I then moved on to doing the closure. So I cut some ends off some laces and used a piece of plastic boning, normally used for a corset, and wove the laces over and under and clipped them in place. This is a thin plastic boning so it can go under the machine, so I just sewed those laces in place and took the clips off. I found for corsets in the past when I've just woven the laces into the back of the corset, it's kind of collapsed a little bit, so I wanted to add a little bit of structure by adding the plastic boning in. The corset's pretty much done at this point. I just had to find myself a model, and guess who turned up? Jess from season 11 of the Sew and Bee, my really good friend. All the season 11 bees got together this weekend down at Stu's house and I managed to wrangle Jess into this corset for me. She looks stunning.